It began with silence. Not a silence of peace, but the kind that follows judgment, heavy, cold, final. The message from the Galactic Council came without warning. One moment, Earth's diplomats were waiting for their turn to speak. The next, the translation screens went dark, and the Council's emblem burned across every channel. The decree was short, almost cruel in its simplicity. For repeated violations of interstellar law, for reckless behavior endangering galactic stability, the species known as Homo sapiens is hereby exiled from the Accord. Effective immediately, all trade and communication with Earth and its colonies are forbidden. Human presence beyond Sol will be treated as hostile. Then the signal cut. No explanations, no appeals, just silence. At first, no one believed it. The diplomats in orbit froze where they stood. The media anchors stammered on live feeds, waiting for clarification that never came. And down on Earth, billions of people stared at the sky, wondering what crime could damn an entire species. When the Council fleets appeared at the edge of the solar system, hope finally died. They came not with bombs or soldiers, but with scanners, codes, and drones. They moved through the orbital stations like a cold wind, locking systems, seizing tech, and taking everything the Council had once gifted humanity. One by one, our colonies went dark. Mars, Titan, Europa, even the small mining outposts beyond Neptune. Each transmission ended with the same words. By order of the Council, human operations are suspended. Within a week, humanity had fallen back to one planet, the same one we were born on. The Council said it was for the safety of the galaxy. They said humans were too emotional, too violent, too unpredictable. Maybe they weren't wrong. But they forgot to ask why we fought so hard, why we reached for the stars in the first place. They forgot what it meant to be human. In the streets of New Shanghai, people burned Council flags and cursed alien names that once filled history books. In the slums of Johannesburg, children asked why they couldn't see their fathers anymore, the miners who worked the colonies and would never come home. On Luna, the Council's evacuation order came with promises of resettlement. The transport ships never arrived. The colonists were left to die in the cold dark. And still, humanity didn't break. At first, there was chaos. Governments blamed each other. Old nations rose again, shouting about sovereignty and betrayal. But slowly, the noise faded, replaced by something far more dangerous than anger, resolve. The people of Earth began to rebuild, not because they were told to, but because they had no choice. The first signs of resistance came from the forgotten places, underground labs, abandoned shipyards, old military bunkers sealed since the wars of the past century. Engineers began to gather in secret. Scientists worked by candlelight when power grids failed. Soldiers without armies met in empty hangars, talking about unity. And beneath the surface of the planet, something new began to grow. The Galactic Council believed that removing their influence would cripple us. They were wrong. Without them, humanity became itself again, fierce, inventive, desperate. The old saying became truth once more: necessity is the mother of invention. Deprived of alien technology, we turned to our own. We rediscovered forgotten sciences, repurposed weapons from the old wars, and learned to survive without permission. The Council thought they could control evolution. They forgot that evolution doesn't ask. Admiral Helena Reyes was among the first to see what was coming. A veteran of the Helios campaign, she had once commanded fleets under the Council's banner. Now, she stood on a balcony overlooking the ruins of the Pacific Defense Ring, her uniform stripped of insignia. "Do you hear that?" she asked the young engineer beside her. The man listened. There was only the soft hum of the wind. "It's the sound of being forgotten," she said. "But that's fine, we'll remind them soon enough." She turned, her eyes cold and bright. "Start gathering the old captains. We're not finished." Weeks later, a secret message spread across every underground network, every pirate channel, every hidden base in the system. It was simple, just 3 words. Project Iron Dawn active. To most, it meant nothing. To those who knew, it meant everything. Iron Dawn was not just a plan. It was vengeance forged into purpose. It was the promise that humanity would rise again, not as servants of the Council, but as masters of their own fate. Still, there were those who doubted. Some believed the Council would return, apologize, and reinstate Earth's place in the galaxy. But that hope died the day the Council bombed the colony on Ceres. They called it a containment measure. We called it what it was: murder. 1 million souls erased in an instant. Men, women, children vaporized to prevent contamination. That was the day the last diplomat resigned. That was the day the world stopped talking about forgiveness. That was the day humanity decided it would never bow again. The skies over Earth changed after that. Satellites once used for communication now carried weapons. The moon's silent craters filled with hidden hangars. The oceans hid factories building ships the Council could not track. And in the cities, people stopped asking if we would fight back. They started asking when. One evening, a child stood with her father on the cliffs of the Atlantic, watching the Council's last patrol ship leave orbit. Its engines flared bright, a final insult as it vanished into the stars. "Where are they going?" the girl asked. The father watched the sky, his face hard. "Far away," he said, "but one day we'll follow." "Why?" she asked. He smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "Because they forgot something important." "What's that?" He looked up at the stars, his voice quiet but steady. "They forgot that humans don't give up. We don't stay down. When the universe turns its back, we build our own light." The child nodded, not fully understanding, but the stars above seemed to burn a little brighter, as if listening. And somewhere deep beneath the Earth, Iron Dawn stirred for the first time, its engines whispering a promise to the dark. "We are still here. And we are not done." The Galactic Council believed they had ended humanity. They thought we would fade, crushed under the weight of isolation, starving for the resources they had cut off. They told themselves that without trade, without support, without their guidance, Earth would become a graveyard of rust and silence. They didn't understand what they had unleashed. Humans had been fighting extinction since the beginning. Every storm, every war, every famine, we had survived them all. We weren't built for surrender. We were built for the impossible. And when the Council turned its back on us, humanity did what it always does best. We adapted. At first, the planet fell into chaos. Economies collapsed, nations turned against each other, satellites went dark, alien tech failed overnight, and without it, cities went black. But in the dark, we found something we had lost: ourselves. When the streets of New York froze, people lit fires and shared food with strangers. When the lights of Paris died, scientists rewired power from old fusion plants by hand. In the deserts of Australia, mechanics turned mining drones into wind-powered generators. For a while, survival was the only dream left. But then something else was born, not hope, exactly, but defiance. A quiet, burning defiance that spread like wildfire through every bunker and ruin. We realized the Council hadn't destroyed us. They had simply reminded us how to fight. Hidden deep below the old ruins of Geneva, the remnants of Earth's military and scientific leaders gathered. The air smelled of oil and dust. Maps and data screens glowed faintly against concrete walls. Admiral Helena Reyes stood at the head of the table. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned like twin suns. "They believe we are broken," she said. "They believe exile means defeat, but they forget humans don't die quietly, we evolve." Across the table, a scientist named Kaito Tanaka leaned forward. "We have pieces of their technology," he said. "Fragments of their ships, weapon cores from the Council fleet, if we study them long enough. Reyes nodded. We can build something they've never seen before. A murmur spread through the room. The idea was madness, using alien tech to fight the very beings who had created it. But madness was something humanity had always worn like armor. That night the project was born. Its name was spoken only in whispers. Project Iron Dawn. Iron Dawn began with scavengers, old miners, smugglers, engineers, and soldiers who refused to give up. They stole what the Council had left behind: broken drones, damaged reactors, navigation cores from crashed patrol ships. Every fragment mattered, every spark was hope. On the frozen plains of Siberia, old research stations were repurposed into testing labs. In the depths of the Pacific, submarines became shipyards. People disappeared: engineers, programmers, scientists, vanishing from public view. Officially, they were missing. Unofficially, they had joined Iron Dawn. And as the Council's spies looked down from orbit, all they saw was a planet struggling to survive. They didn't see what was happening beneath. 5 years passed. On the surface, humanity looked weaker than ever. Disease spread in colonies. Space travel nearly stopped. But in the shadows, our technology leapt forward decades in secret. The first human-made hypershield flickered to life in an underground test site beneath Antarctica. It overloaded in 5 seconds, but that was 5 seconds longer than any alien believed we were capable of. In the next test, it lasted 15. And then a minute. When it finally held steady for a full hour, the entire bunker erupted in cheers. Men and women hugged each other, tears freezing on their faces. For the first time in years, they felt something stronger than fear: pride. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council watched from their distant worlds. They saw a struggling species, yes, but not a threat. They believed Earth's transmissions were cries for help. They ignored the encrypted signals that flickered between the Moon, Mars, and the Belt. They thought humanity had become a ghost civilization. One alien diplomat, a Zyran named Vel, tried to warn them. "I fought beside the humans once," he said in the council hall, his voice echoing against marble and glass. "They are not like us. They do not surrender. They change the rules. They weaponize desperation." The council chairwoman, a tall Thulian with silver skin, smiled coldly. "Let them exhaust themselves. In a generation they'll be gone. Their planet will rot, their memory fade. The galaxy will move on." Vel shook his head. "The galaxy never moves on from humans. It only forgets until they remind it." The council laughed. It was the last time they would ever laugh about Earth. Back home, under the frozen seas of Europa, humanity's first Iron Dawn ship was born, the TUS Vengeance. It wasn't large, it wasn't pretty. Its armor was rough and mismatched, a patchwork of alien alloys and human steel, but it was ours, entirely ours. When it launched, the sound shook the ice shelf above. Men and women in pressure suits cheered as the ship's engines ignited with a roar like thunder. Admiral Reyes stood in the control bay, her hand resting on the viewport glass as the vessel rose into the black sky. "Let them believe we're still crawling," she whispered. "When they finally look this way again, I want them to see a goddamn storm." And so humanity waited. We built in silence, learning to hide our brilliance beneath the dirt. We turned despair into fuel. We learned to move like ghosts, to build without trace, to speak only when the stars were listening. We watched the council grow comfortable, arrogant, lazy. They thought the threat was gone. They turned their attention elsewhere. And when the last of their patrols left our skis, the world breathed again. But the silence wasn't peace, it was preparation. The human heart, once broken, had become a forge. From the ashes of exile, a single truth began to spread, whispered across every underground city, written on walls, sung by workers as they built ships beneath the seas. They took the stars from us, so we'll take the galaxy from them. And somewhere in the cold vacuum beyond Neptune, the TUS Vengeance disappeared into the dark, humanity's first ghost ship. No signal, no trace. But as it vanished, one final message reached the hidden channels of Earth. Iron Dawn is awake. The Council had made their mistake. They thought they had buried us. They didn't know they had only planted a seed. It began with a whisper in the dark. A signal faint, almost lost in static, reaching across the void. The Council's patrol fleet at the edge of Proxima Gate caught it first. They thought it was background noise, a solar flare, a glitch. But then the static became a voice, human, calm, cold. To the Galactic Council, this is Admiral Helena Reyes of the Terran Union. You left us to die. Now we decide who lives. The message repeated once, and then the channel went silent. For 3 hours, the Council's patrol ships searched for the source. They found nothing, not a signal, not a ship, not even debris. And then their sensors began to fail, one by one. Moments later, the entire fleet vanished. The Council tried to cover it up. They told the galaxy it was an anomaly, a malfunction, a freak collapse in the Proxima Gate corridor. But the truth leaked out anyway. Merchant vessels passing near the sector reported strange readings, unknown energy spikes, drifting wreckage with melted hulls, and fragments of alien ships carrying the scorch marks of human weapons. Human weapons that weren't supposed to exist. On Earth, deep beneath the surface, Admiral Reyes stood inside the Iron Dawn command room. Around her, holographic maps flickered with red and blue lights, enemy positions, listening posts and shipping routes. Her officers waited in silence. "The message has been sent," said Lieutenant Mara Ivers, her voice low but steady. Reyes nodded. "Good, now we wait." A young officer swallowed hard. "Ma'am, won't they come after us now?" Reyes looked at him, her expression unreadable. "That's the point." The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Inside the shining spire of Vonar, delegates from 100 species gathered, their voices echoing through marble halls. Panic rippled like a storm. "Human fleets are impossible," shouted a blue-skinned envoy from the Rix Dominion. "They were dismantled decades ago." "Their planet lacks the resources for war," hissed a Thulian diplomat. "They are bluffing." But the Zyran ambassador, Vel, the one who had warned them years ago, only shook his head. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "They never bluff." The Council ordered a recon squadron to Sol. 5 ships, sleek, armed, and confident. Their mission: investigate and re-establish control. The first transmission came 20 minutes after arrival. The commander's voice trembled through the comms. "We've entered Sol orbit. Planet appears fortified. Repeat, fortified. Unknown structures on Luna. Massive power readings under Earth's surface. We are detecting." Static. Then screams. Then nothing. 5 ships gone. No distress beacons. No debris, just silence. By the time the Council realized what had happened, the message was spreading through the outer colonies. They called it the warning. Every ship, every outpost, every data feed carried the same signal. "Do not enter Sol space. The humans have awakened." The Council denied it, of course. They always did. But fear spreads faster than truth, and every captain who'd ever heard stories about humanity's wars started locking their navigation routes away from Earth. The Council called it superstition. The rest of the galaxy called it survival instinct. Meanwhile, on the Moon, Iron Dawn entered its second phase. Underground hangars opened one by one, revealing rows of ships unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Hybrid engines glowing with white fire, hulls covered in shimmering adaptive plates, and cannons forged from the core of old Council reactors. They weren't designed for defense. They were designed for vengeance. At the heart of it all stood the TUS Vengeance, humanity's first fully operational warship since exile. It floated silently in lunar orbit, dark and patient. Reyes stood on the command bridge, her hands clasped behind her back. Through the viewport, she watched the pale curve of Earth below, scarred, beautiful, alive. "They thought we'd go quietly," she said softly. Captain Ivers stood beside her. "What if they call our bluff?" Reyes smiled, a small, dangerous smile. "Then we remind them what a human bluff looks like." 3 days later, a Council scout ship approached the edge of the solar system. Its captain, a cautious Zethari, tried to make contact. "Earth Command, this is Council Vessel Vurin. We come under flag of—" The voice cut out. The next moment the Vurin's sensors flared. A single human warship decloaked before them, black as space, no markings, no identification. A transmission followed, voice calm and cold as ice. "Council vessel, you are trespassing in Terran space. Withdraw immediately." The Zethari captain hesitated. "We are authorized." "No," the human interrupted, "you are not." And then the signal died. The Vurin turned to retreat, but before its engines could ignite, a pulse of white light rippled across the void. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the Vurin was gone, atomized. All that remained was a faint echo across the stars. Back at the Council, chaos erupted. "An act of war," one delegate screamed. "A declaration," shouted another. But the chairwoman stood in silence, staring at the hollow image of the destroyed ship. For the first time, she looked afraid. "Summon the fleets," she said at last. "If the humans want war, we will give them one." Ambassador Vell only sighed. "You don't give humans war," he murmured. "You just open the door and pray they don't walk through it." Back on Earth, Reyes watched the incoming data. Hundreds of Council ships were mobilizing, converging on Sol. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and spoke into the command channel. "All Iron Dawn units, prepare for contact. The galaxy wants to remember us. Let's make sure they never forget." And as the first Council armada entered the edge of the solar system, they found something waiting for them in the black, hundreds of human warships, rising from the dark side of the planets, engines glowing like angry suns. The message was clear, burned into every frequency, every channel, every star map. Humanity was back. And this time, we weren't asking for permission. They came in the thousands. The Galactic Council's fleet, 2,000 warships strong, emerged from the blackness beyond Pluto. Their engines glowed like suns, their banners shimmering with the symbols of every proud race that had once ruled over the stars. It was the largest armada in history, a declaration, a warning, a punishment. And at its head, the Council Dreadnought Sovereign, a ship the size of a continent, commanded by Grand Admiral Rule, who had personally overseen Earth's exile 20 years before. He had expected fear. He found silence. "Planet Sol 3, this is the Galactic Council," Rule's voice thundered across every open channel. "You are in violation of galactic law. You will surrender your fleets, your weapons, and your leadership. Failure to comply will result in total planetary cleansing." The message echoed through the solar system like a death sentence. No response came. Not from Earth. Not from Mars. Not from Luna. Just silence deep and heavy, like the calm before a storm. On Earth, deep inside the Iron Dawn command bunker, Admiral Reyes stood before a wall of holographic projections. The Council's fleet shimmered across the display, like a silver swarm crawling toward Sol. 2,000 ships, whispered Lieutenant Ivers. "They've brought everything they have." Reyes said nothing. She watched the lights moving on the map. She knew this moment was coming. The entire Iron Dawn project had been built for it. "Do we respond?" asked Ivers. Reyes nodded slowly. "Yes." She turned to the comm officer. Send the message. Across the void, the Council's fleet suddenly froze. A single Terran ship appeared before them, black, silent, and impossibly small compared to the Armada. Its name was TUS Vengeance. The ship didn't move, it didn't charge its weapons, it simply waited. Then a voice came across every Council channel clear, calm, unmistakably human. Council command, this is Earth. You have one choice. Leave our system, or we'll show you what evolution does when it's cornered. There was a pause, then laughter. Rule leaned back in his command chair, grinning. One ship, he said. One primitive ship dares speak to us like this. His officers laughed too. Fire on it, he ordered. The first volley came from 100 Council ships, beams of plasma hot enough to vaporize moons. They hit Vengeance dead on. And nothing happened. The beams bent, curved around the ship like light through glass. For a moment, the alien commanders thought it was a trick of the sensors. Then they realized their weapons were bending space itself. Impossible, one of them gasped. No known shield can. Before he could finish, the Vengeance fired once. Just once. A blinding white pulse. And an entire squadron, 12 Council destroyers, vanished. Panic spread through the alien formation. New readings, shouted an aide. Human fleet detected behind us. Rule turned his mouth dry. Behind. Then space itself cracked open. Hundreds of human ships appeared, rising out of the darkness like ghosts. They weren't large. They weren't uniform. Some were sleek and silver. Others were old freighters rebuilt into war machines. But every one of them burned with the same cold blue flame. The message was clear. Humanity had been waiting. The first Battle of Sol began. Council cruisers unleashed waves of plasma, cutting through the void like fire through glass. Human ships darted between them, faster, smaller, unpredictable. Where aliens relied on perfect formation, humans relied on chaos. A Martian corvette rammed a Thulian dreadnought head-on, detonating its fusion core in a flash that lit up Saturn's rings. A swarm of drones launched from Europa tore apart Council carriers from below, their engines fueled by scavenged alien tech. The battlefield became a storm of light and death. The aliens had power. The humans had fury. And fury was winning. On the command deck of Vengeance, Admiral Reyes stood calm amid the storm. Target their flagship, she ordered. Her officers looked at her in shock. That's suicide, Admiral. Reyes smiled faintly. So was Exile, do it. The Vengeance shot forward, its engines screaming, space bending around its hull. Council ships tried to stop it, but their weapons missed by light years. The human ship wasn't flying through space, it was cutting through time. When it reappeared, it was face to face with the Sovereign. Grand Admiral Rule stared at the tiny ship before him. Open fire, he snarled. His gunners obeyed. Beams, missiles, rail rounds, everything the Sovereign had. The Vengeance didn't dodge, it didn't hide. It charged straight in. At the last second, its front armor panels peeled back, revealing the Iron Dawn cannon, a weapon made from the heart of Earth's planetary core. Rey's voice echoed across both fleets. You called us dangerous, you were right. She fired. A beam of pure light tore through the Sovereign, splitting it from end to end. The explosion painted the void in gold and white. When the light faded, the Sovereign was gone. And with it the Council's confidence. Silence filled the stars. The alien fleet hesitated, command shattered, coordination gone. Then one by one, their ships turned and fled. Humanity didn't chase them. Not yet. Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge, her face lit by the dying embers of the explosion. Status report, she said. Enemy retreat confirmed, replied Ivers. We won, ma'am. Reyes exhaled slowly. No, she said, we survived for now. In the council chambers light years away, the remaining delegates watched the battle feed in silence. Entire fleets gone, their greatest ship destroyed by the very species they had cast out. Ambassador Vel the Zyran spoke quietly, "I warned you." The chairwoman turned to him, pale and trembling. "What are they going to do now?" Vel's eyes darkened. "They'll give you a choice," he said, "and you won't like either one." And so, from the ruins of the battle at Sol, a single transmission echoed through the galaxy. "To the Galactic Council, you cast us into the dark. Now you will answer to the light." Humanity had issued the ultimatum, and the galaxy had finally learned to be afraid again. The First War of Sol was over. The Council's armada had been shattered, their greatest ship destroyed, their pride burned away in the black. But everyone on Earth knew it wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The Council would return, stronger, angrier, desperate to prove they still ruled the stars. Humanity had bloodied their nose, but now the giants of the galaxy were fully awake. And this time they would come to destroy, not to conquer. In the months that followed the Battle of Sol, humanity didn't celebrate. They rebuilt. The wreckage of the Council's fleet became raw material. Alien alloys, melted and reforged into armor plating. Engines ripped from ruined cruisers now powered the next generation of Terran ships. Children in the ruins of Tokyo watched the skis every night, whispering to the stars, "They'll come again." Their parents answered, "Then we'll be ready." The Iron Dawn project grew beyond Earth. Mars, once red and silent, blazed with life again. Massive shipyards rose from its canyons, building warships with Martian dust on their hulls. Luna became the command hub, a fortress of glass and steel buried beneath its gray surface. Venus, once uninhabitable, now hosted the Hellforge reactors, factories so hot they glowed brighter than the sun. And in the deep ice of Europa, the first Terran superweapon stirred, a planetary railgun capable of firing tungsten slugs across the solar system. Its engineers gave it a simple name: Judgment. Every corner of humanity worked with a single heartbeat. One voice. One goal. Never again. When the Council finally returned, they didn't come quietly. Scouts saw them first, drifting at the edge of Neptune's orbit, a fleet even larger than before, stretching across the stars like a black sea. Council channels broadcast the same message, cold and arrogant as ever. Humanity has violated galactic law once more. This time, there will be no mercy. Earth's response was short and final. We weren't asking for any. The invasion began with Mars. The aliens hit the planet with plasma storms, turning its red sky white. They thought the colony was undefended. They were wrong. When the first alien bombardment hit, the dust of Mars shifted. The ground opened, massive metal doors rising like mountains. Hidden beneath the planet's crust were thousands of Terran warships, waiting in silence for this moment. As the alien fleets drew near, those ships rose from the dust like avenging angels. "Humanity doesn't hide," said Admiral Reyes over the command frequency. "We reload." The first volley from the Martian guns tore through the alien formation like lightning through paper. The airless sky filled with streaks of fire. On Earth, people watched the battle through grainy broadcasts. The whole planet held its breath. Farmers stopped their tractors. Teachers paused mid-sentence. Even children in underground shelters sat in silence, clutching each other's hands. They didn't pray for victory. They prayed that the enemy would remember who they had cast out. For every human ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The aliens fought with precision and discipline, but the humans fought like something alive, wild, unpredictable, impossible to control. Where a Council cruiser moved in perfect patterns, a Terran ship danced like a storm, switching formation mid-battle. using the enemy's predictability against them. Human pilots fought even when their hulls were burning, even when oxygen ran thin. Some rammed their ships into alien dreadnoughts, detonating their cores at point-blank range. Each explosion was a message. You cannot break what refuses to kneel. As the battle raged, the Council fleet pushed toward Earth, burning a path through the asteroid belt. They reached the orbit of Jupiter, and there they stopped. Not because they wanted to. Because the planet fought back. The gas giant's orbit was lined with hidden human satellites, each one armed with antimatter torpedoes. When the Council's flagship entered the kill zone, the torpedoes detonated, ripping the space around Jupiter into glowing shards of reality. The aliens had studied human technology, but they had never studied human imagination. Admiral Reyes watched it unfold from the command center beneath the Pacific Ocean. The holomap shimmered with red and blue dots, alien losses multiplying by the minute. Her face was calm, but her hands were trembling. Lieutenant Ivers approached. "They're still coming, ma'am. Reinforcements from the core worlds. We've destroyed half their fleet, but they'll bring more." Reyes looked at her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Then we'll show them something new." She pressed her hand against the console. The screen shifted, showing the icy world of Europa. "Activate judgment." From the frozen depths of Europa, the ground began to shake. Massive gates opened, and the railgun rose, a weapon so large it looked like a mountain being born. It locked onto the largest alien carrier near Saturn. Reyes gave the order. A single tungsten round, the size of a skyscraper, fired through space at nearly the speed of light. It hit. The explosion was silent. There's no sound in space, but every sensor in the solar system registered it. The carrier vanished. And for a brief moment, Saturn had a new ring made entirely of molten alien debris. The battle dragged on for days. By the end of the week, the Council fleets were broken. The survivors fled, leaving their dead behind billions of tons of burning wreckage drifting through the void. The solar system went quiet again. But not peaceful. Humanity stood among the ashes, bleeding but unbowed. In the council chambers, chaos ruled. The once proud leaders of the galaxy screamed for answers, demanding to know how one primitive species had defeated them twice. Ambassador Vell watched in silence, then finally spoke. "You didn't lose to humans," he said. "You lost to what you made them become." On Earth, Admiral Reyes stood on a balcony overlooking the rebuilt city of Geneva. Smoke still rose from the shipyards, but the stars above were clear again. A reporter asked her, "Is it over?" Reyes shook her head. "No, but now they understand something important." She looked up at the sky, where the wreckage of alien ships glowed faintly like a second constellation. "They thought exile would destroy us, but it only reminded us who we are." And so humanity stood, defiant, scarred and burning bright, no longer begging for a seat among the stars. The galaxy had wanted to erase us. Instead, it had written our name in fire. The stars burned red for weeks after the Battle of Jupiter. The wreckage of alien fleets drifted across the void, glowing faintly in the sunlight like dying embers. Broken ships, shattered armor, and the frozen bodies of countless soldiers floated in silence, a graveyard of the proud. And in that silence, Earth rebuilt again. There were no parades, no songs of victory, just the steady hum of factories, the low thunder of engines, and the quiet murmur of people who understood that the war wasn't over, not yet. Because the Council had fallen back, yes, but they hadn't surrendered. They were gathering. They were coming. And humanity knew it. From orbit, Earth no longer looked like the blue marble it once was. It had become a fortress. Massive orbital cannons circled the planet like a crown of steel. The moon glittered with rail batteries hidden under silver dust. Even the oceans hid secrets as submarines the size of cities, their launch bays carved into the abyss. Humanity had turned its home into a weapon. They called it the Iron Dawn defense grid. Every city, every colony, every satellite was part of it, a living shield forged by desperation and brilliance. The Council had their empire, humanity had their home, and that home would never fall again. Admiral Reyes stood in the command tower high above the Pacific, staring at the holographic map of the solar system. Red dots, thousands of them, marked the incoming Council armada. They weren't just coming for Earth. They were coming to end the idea of humanity itself. Confirmed readings from the Outer Rim, Lieutenant Ivers said quietly. They've brought everything this time, core fleets, warpriests, even the Thulian dreadnoughts. Reyes nodded slowly. Good, she said. I want them all here. Ivers frowned. Ma'am, if we lose this battle. Reyes turned toward her, eyes hard as iron. Then the galaxy burns with us. The Council fleets advanced through the dark, a storm of light and metal. Their ships blotted out the stars. On every alien world, broadcasts showed the Armada in all its might, a display meant to remind the galaxy that the Council was still supreme. But deep down, across those same worlds, people whispered the same thing. They're afraid. When the first wave entered Mars' orbit, humanity didn't fire. Not yet. They let the enemy come closer, past the asteroid belt, past the moons, into the gravity wells where movement became slower, predictable. Then Earth spoke. A single transmission reached every ship in the fleet. It wasn't a threat, not this time. It was a promise. You came to cleanse us, you'll leave as ash. And the skis ignited. Every defense grid, every hidden cannon, every weapon humanity had built unleashed at once. From the rings of Saturn, orbital railguns tore through the Council's front lines. From the moon, plasma beams ripped open the void. Even Earth itself fought back. The planet's magnetic field, now weaponized through the Gaia core, flared like a living storm, bending energy and burning ships from orbit. The sky above the planet shimmered, not with light but with fury. Still, the Council pushed forward, their dreadnoughts carved through human lines, their shields blazing bright. They had numbers, centuries of technology and weapons that could split moons. But they didn't have humans. Every time a Terran ship went down, another pilot rose to take its place. Every time an orbital cannon fell silent, a new one came online. Civilians volunteered to fight, engineers turned asteroids into mines, and old freighters rammed alien cruisers in suicidal runs that left the stars burning. The galaxy had always seen humans as reckless. Now it saw why that made them terrifying. In the command tower, Reyes watched the battle unfold, her jaw clenched, her eyes never blinking. Status of the Iron Dawn grid, she asked. 70% functional, Ivers replied. We're losing power on the western arc, but the core systems are holding. Reyes turned toward the glowing sphere on the display. Earth, Gaia core, humanity's last weapon. It pulsed like a heart. How long until full charge? 20 minutes. Reyes took a deep breath. Then we hold for 20 minutes. The enemy broke through the moon's defenses. Dreadnoughts fell toward Earth's orbit, their cannons lighting the clouds below. For the first time, cities on the surface saw the battle up close, fire streaking through the night, alien ships burning like falling stars. In New York, people gathered on rooftops, watching the sky as it rained light. Is it over? Someone whispered. An old veteran, his face lined with scars, shook his head. No, he said, it's just starting. Back in orbit, the TUS Vengeance rose from the dark side of the planet, its black hull scarred, its engines glowing like molten fire. Admiral Reyes' voice echoed through every frequency. This is humanity's world. You had your chance to leave. You didn't. Now you face the dawn. She raised her hand. Fire the Gaia core. The heart of Earth exploded with light. A pulse of energy rippled outward, wrapping the planet in a glowing sphere of plasma. The Iron Dawn grid connected instantly, railguns, satellites, defense arrays, all feeding into the same storm. The pulse grew brighter, hotter, until even the stars seemed to fade. And then it struck. The shockwave swept across the solar system, tearing through the invading fleet. Shields collapsed, engines melted, ships vaporized in silence. From Neptune to Mars, the Council's armada disintegrated under the fury of a planet that refused to die. When the light faded, the void was empty. Where once 2,000 ships had stood, there was nothing but dust and silence. Earth's skies were clear again. But humanity knew what it had cost. Millions dead, cities burned, the oceans scarred from the pulse. Yet even in ruin, they had done what the galaxy thought impossible. They had defended their home. In the council chambers, chaos turned to horror. Every screen showed the same image, Earth glowing like a star, defiant and alive. Ambassador Vell whispered into the stunned silence, "The Iron Dawn has risen." No one replied, because everyone knew what it meant. The Council wasn't the ruler of the galaxy anymore. Humanity was. On Earth, Admiral Reyes stood before a shattered window, looking out at the dawn rising through smoke and fire. Her uniform was torn, her hands trembled. Lieutenant Ivers stepped beside her. "We won, ma'am," she said softly. Reyes didn't smile. She just looked at the rising sun, red, bright, and beautiful. "No," she whispered, "we survived. Winning comes next." And as the light spread across the scarred Earth, one truth became clear. The Council had forsaken humanity. Now humanity had become the storm that would remake the galaxy. The Iron Dawn had risen, and it would never set again. The war was over. At least, that's what the galaxy wanted to believe. The Council's armadas had burned, their warlords destroyed, their power shattered across the stars. But the echoes of battle still drifted through the void, the ghosts of fleets that once called themselves invincible. And in those ashes, one truth remained clear. Humanity had not just survived. Humanity had won. But victory came with a silence far heavier than war. The Earth was scarred. Half the continents bore the marks of the Iron Dawn strike, blackened deserts where oceans had boiled, cities now turned to glass. Yet, life persisted. Crops grew again. Children played among ruins that glowed faintly under starlight. The planet had changed. It was no longer the home of fragile dreamers reaching for the stars. It was now the throne of a species that had taken them. Admiral Helena Reyes stood on the balcony of the new Terran citadel, a structure rising where Geneva once stood. Around her, the rebuilt skyline shimmered with glass and metal towers, symbols of human resilience and defiance. Below, crowds gathered millions strong. Soldiers, workers, colonists, and children all waiting for her words. The world had crowned her as the leader of the Terran Union, though she never wanted titles. She only wanted peace. But peace, she knew, was no longer a gift humanity could expect. It was something they had to control. She stepped forward to the podium, her voice amplified across continents. "My people," she began softly, "the stars have always belonged to those who dare to reach for them. For centuries we reached and they punished us for it. They called us reckless, dangerous, unworthy." She paused, looking at the sky, where the orbiting remains of alien ships still glittered faintly like a second constellation. "They were right about one thing," she said. "We are dangerous because we remember, because we endure, because we fight when others would kneel." Her words echoed through the world, across every colony and station. "And now," she continued, her voice firm as steel, "we stand at the edge of something greater than survival. The Council is broken. Their fleets are gone. Their worlds are exposed. This is not the time to hide behind walls. This is the time to decide what kind of future we will make. The crowd roared, the sound carrying through the winds. But even as they cheered, her eyes stayed cold, thoughtful. Reyes didn't want revenge. She wanted justice. But justice had a price. In the shadow of the Milky Way's edge, the remnants of the Galactic Council huddled on their sanctuary world, Helios Prime. Once its skies had been filled with the banners of 100 proud species. Now, only a few ships remained. Inside the council chamber, silence reigned. The surviving leaders sat around a fractured table, scarred and weary. None of them spoke the old anthem. None dared to. Finally, Ambassador Vel, the Zyran who had once defended humanity, broke the silence. "You called them savages," he said. "You called them unstable, but you never understood them. They don't seek dominance for its own sake. They fight to never be ruled again." The Thulian chairwoman glared at him. "So you would have us surrender to them, to humans?" Vel's gaze didn't waver. "You already have, you just haven't signed it yet." Days later, the stars above Helios Prime darkened. A fleet appeared, not alien, not council, human. Their ships were vast and black, their engines glowing with the pale light of the Gaia core. They didn't come firing. They didn't need to. They came to end history. A transmission cut through every frequency in the galaxy. To the surviving members of the Galactic Council came the voice of Admiral Reyes, steady and calm. "You cast us into exile. You stole our skis and burned our colonies. You said we were too dangerous to stand among you. You were right, and now you will stand before us." Helios Prime trembled as human ships descended. They did not destroy, they landed. When the air cleared, armored soldiers stepped out, not as invaders but as judges. In the council's once golden hall, the alien leader stood trembling as Reyes herself entered. Her uniform was plain. Her presence was not. "You all believed humanity would fade," she said, her voice echoing across the chamber. "You thought we'd forget the cold, the hunger, the humiliation. You thought you could cage us forever." She walked to the center of the room. "You forgot something important. Humans don't stay broken. We rebuild sharper." No one spoke. Even the guards of other species lowered their eyes. Reyes placed a data crystal on the table. "This contains the new terms," she said. "Effective immediately, the Galactic Council is dissolved. The Terran Union will form the new order, one where no species will rule another. You will cooperate or you will vanish." The Thulian chairwoman's voice quivered. "You wouldn't dare." Reyes leaned closer, her eyes hard as stone. "Try me." When the message reached the rest of the galaxy, it carried with it both awe and fear. The humans had not only won the war, they had ended an empire. World after world swore allegiance to the Terran Union, some from hope, some from terror, and some from the simple knowledge that resistance was pointless. The era of the Council was over. The age of humanity had begun. On Earth, people celebrated, but it was not a celebration of blood. It was a quiet one of survival, of unity, of pride. Admiral Reyes stood alone that night, watching the stars from her balcony. The city below glowed with life again. Lieutenant Ivers joined her, silent for a moment. "It's strange," Ivers said softly. "They called us monsters. Now they fear us like gods." Reyes nodded. "They should never have feared us," she said. "They should have stood beside us." She looked at the stars, countless, endless, waiting. "But they taught us something," she said quietly. "The galaxy only respects strength, so we'll be strong enough that no one ever tries to chain us again." Far above them, the Iron Dawn fleet drifted through orbit, silent sentinels guarding the cradle of humankind. Each ship bore the same words etched into its hull. "Forsaken once, forgotten never." And in the centuries that followed, when other species told stories of the wars that reshaped the galaxy, they spoke of that final message. The one admiral rays sent across every world, every moon, every star. The council forsook humanity. Humanity answered, "We do not forgive. We endure." The galaxy remembered, and humanity never had to remind them again.